Thanks for joining us today. So we're coming at you from Whole Earth and from North Face over here. So I'm Rainey with Whole Earth. We've got Heather. We are here with Stephanie. She is a North Face athlete and ultra runner. She has a PhD in nutrition and exercise science. So that's really interesting. And I want to find out a little bit more about that. But she is going to talk a little bit about nutrition while we are working out our bodies. And then she is going to cook a delicious noodle dish for us. So I think that's going to be pretty exciting. All right. So I'm not going to take up any more of her time. I'll give it on over to Stephanie here.
All right. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to my backyard. I'm going to be going through a little nutrition lesson / cooking demonstration tonight. I want to kind of debunk the myth that you can only have like really simple food or dehydrated food in the backcountry or while you're camping, and show you guys some really quick ways to prepare actually tasty food that has some nutrients in it. So before I go into that, basics on nutrition. I love talking about food. I love eating food. And I just kind of want to go through, what does a healthy diet or what does good nutrition look like? And to break it down, there's 3 different macronutrients. There's carbohydrates, fat, and protein. And we need all 3 of them. So if you read about something that says to not eat one of them or to minimize one of them, that is not a good way to eat. We want to get the right proportions of each of those macronutrients, but we need some of each of them. So starting with carbohydrates, those kind of go in and out of popularity in the last like 5 to 10 years. Right now, they're kind of coming back in. They've been like really shunned a few years ago, but carbohydrates are good. They're so healthy for our bodies. Our brain alone needs 130 grams a day. And so it's not only a necessary nutrient for us to stay alive, it also fuels every activity that we do. And if you can see some of this food that I have out here, these are a lot of carbohydrates, and all of these colors mean that they have nutrients in them. So we get a lot of our vitamins, our minerals, our fiber, our antioxidants from carbohydrates. So when we think of eating them, we want about 50% of the volume at any meal to come from carbohydrate. And that can be a mix of things like vegetables, which you see a lot of right here, but it also can mean that you have some grains in there too. And not all carbohydrates are created equal, but we do want to have some of both. We want to have a lot of vegetables and fruits, but we also want to have things like rice, noodles, bread, quinoa, and potatoes. Those are all good sources of carbohydrate as well. And we want to mix and match those because they have different nutrients in them. And it's important to get all of them. So the second macronutrient is protein. And protein is one that is pretty popular right now. We hear a lot about why we want to have protein, high protein diets. It's a myth that it's hard to get enough protein. Okay, so if you eat 100% plant-based, you can get all the protein that you need. It's just a matter of taking in a variety of different sources. So things like beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, soy, peas, even some of the grains like quinoa have pretty good protein in them. You don't have to be totally plant-based. You can eat animal products as well. But if you do choose to eat just plants, you don't have to worry about missing out on protein. Then the third nutrient is fat. And fat makes everything taste good. So super, super good to include in every meal just because of that. But also it aids in the absorption of nutrients. So if you have like a big, like nutrient dense meal, like we're going to make tonight, and you don't have any fat along with that meal, you don't absorb as much of it as well. So it's more available to your body when you have some fat to go along with a lot of the good stuff. So the best types of fats are unsaturated fat, and those are mainly liquid at room temperature. There are some exceptions to the rules, like avocado is an unsaturated fat. and they're mostly plant-based sources that are unsaturated. So those are the type we want to emphasize. Some of my favorites besides avocado are olive oil, nuts and seeds. They're protein as well, but they have some fat in them. Butter and dairy is actually a saturated fat, but it's a good fat. And then any type of vegetable or plant-based oil is another good one. So just making sure that you add fat to the meal is really important. So when you're at home, that's pretty easy to do because you have a full kitchen and you can, stock your pantry and have all these things on hand. But when you go camping, sometimes it's hard to think about like, oh, I actually can take these foods along with me, or I can prepare good food out when I'm camping. And so I have some things here to show you of how I do it. And so one of the keys is having the equipment. So here I have a jet boil, and there's so many different types, but this one I like because it's fairly, I shouldn't say too large, but it's a good size for cooking. And I have a pan that I can fry up some vegetables in, and then also a bigger pan where I can boil water in. So all of these, it's kind of like taking your kitchen with you, and they package really small. Like all of this, before I set it out, it was all together in one little contained package. So when you're packing, it's not really too much to bring with you. And especially once you get in the routine of like, you just have your camping gear and your cooking set all together, it's easy to take with you. And so you don't have to eat boring when you're out camping. And so what I'm going to make tonight for you is a rice noodle stir fry. And again, I have a lot of food set out here. If this is too much volume to bring with you, you can prep some of this ahead of time. So you can get, some of these vegetables and you can just cut them up, chop them up, put them in like a little container or even like one of your pans and bring them along with you. So it's not taking up more space. But these are foods that I just had in my refrigerator. I got a CSA delivery this week. And so in that CSA, I had some kale. I have some peppers. I have a shallot, some purple kohlrabi, a hot jalapeno, and some garlic. So this is not like, oh, follow this recipe. I think just whatever vegetables you like or you have, that's a good thing to take with you because you can easily prep them. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then I have these rice noodles to bring along with me. And I like these because they boil and cook in about 3 to 4 minutes. And so you're not spending a lot of time cooking and preparing like spaghetti noodles or pasta take like 10 minutes. Like I said, with every meal as well. And a lot of times, if you want, you can bring like a whole container of olive oil. So what I did here, what I have here today is I have some soy sauce. And this is actually, it's not tamarind, shoyu sauce. And then some tahini. And these are going to work as the fat. The tahini is the fat, but they're also going to work as flavor. And so you can bring along things that make the food taste good when you go camping as well, because although it's really nice to have all these great vegetables, if you don't have any seasonings or flavor to go with them, it can taste kind of bland. So I'm going to use these as kind of my way to flavor it and to use as a fat. And then I really like to cook with wine. I like to drink wine. So this is one that I take with me when I go camping. It's an aluminum container. It's called Revel Shine Red. And it's just a delicious, easy to take with me. So totally optional, but I have it included here. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is put on my cooking apron. Not always necessary in the outdoors, but since I'm at home, I thought I would take this opportunity to look the part.
The joy of being in the comfort of your own backyard.
Yeah, I know. You could kind of mistake it for the outdoors though. We've got like a campsite. We've got a nice foliage in the back here. Okay, so I'm going to move some of these things as I kind of get situated and prepared. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my garlic and my onions ready, just like I would at home, which I am at home. And this is my camp knife. And the reason it's my camp knife is it has a cover. Okay, so super important. You want to bring a sharp knife with you, but you want to make sure that it's protected. And so I like this one because it has a cover. If you don't have one that is like this, you can wrap it in like just some like paper towels and put a rubber band over it just so that you can bring a knife, but it's also protected. And then a few other utensils that I use come with the Jetboil. So there's a fork and a spoon and then a couple of spatula. So really you have everything you need. All right, so I'm gonna start to peel this garlic. And when I'm cooking, I like to start with the garlic and the spice and the onions first, because that's what's going to flavor the whole dish. And then I'll move on to the vegetables that need to cook a little bit longer. And then the greens are going to be the very last thing because they don't take very long to cook. So with vegetables, you want to cook most vegetables because one, they taste good when they're cooked, but two, some of the nutrients are more available when they're cooked. You don't want to overcook things, but just slightly sauteing things, especially like the kale or broccoli or Brussels sprouts. It just makes the nutrients in them a little bit more available to our bodies, which is really important because if you eat something, you want to be able to benefit from what's in it. So I'm just chopping this garlic here and keeping in mind too the size of my pan. So you know, you can cook quite a bit in there, but if you're cooking for more than say a couple people, you might want to get a larger setup than what I have here, or just consider, you know, maybe using like 2 of these vegetables rather than as many as I have here. So I grew up camping quite a bit. Actually, every summer we would go on a camping trip with a few families, and each family was in charge of some of the meals. And so I got to kind of see how different families prepared meals. And the biggest common theme was to plan ahead of time. And so planning the meal out, like we're going to have spaghetti on Tuesday, and Wednesday morning we're going to have pancakes. And then Wednesday evening, we're going to have tacos. And when you plan ahead like that, it's really easy to make sure that one, you don't overpack things so that you're only taking the food that you're going to eat and that you have good options and not eating the same thing every night. So that's one thing with going camping is you have to be a little bit more prepared because you have to take everything with you. And I think my parents are on this call and they probably remember that.
I've definitely overpacked food for a camping trip and come home with so much more food. And I'm like, I didn't need half this stuff.
Right. And then sometimes things go to waste and then you feel bad about it. So when you're camping, I think, although I'm trying to get you to bring a lot of vegetables with you and prepare them, simple is better. So I'm not doing like a big elaborate dish. This is like it's going to be a 2-pot, but sort of like a 1-pot meal. It's just a bunch of veggies and some rice noodles. And just keeping things simple like that makes it so that you're not overwhelmed with everything you have to do when you get to a campsite, and just makes it for a better experience so that you're more likely to do it again. Because we want cooking to be enjoyable. We don't want it to be something that takes all day. We don't want it to be stressful. And we don't want it to be foods that don't feel good when you eat them. So I am just cutting up these shallots. So I've got my garlic and my shallots kind of cut up in this pan. And I'm going to do the pepper next. And so this is totally optional. I just really like spice. So I'm going to cut up a jalapeno. If you have people that are sensitive to spice, when you're cutting things, even if you're doing like 2 different options, you can get spice on the knife from the oils in the pepper. So just be aware of that.
I love prepping my jalapenos at home, so I don't have to worry about getting the oils all over my hands when I'm out camping and then risk, touching my eye. It's much easier to do that when you're outside camping. You get a bug in your eye or some dirt and you go for it and you've got all that oil on your hand from a jalapeno and it totally blows. So I always prep my spicy things at home.
That's a really good point. I used to have contacts. And so that was the worst thing ever when you prepare something and then you go to take your contacts out and you get spice in your eye. So a lot of this prep can be done ahead of time. I could have chopped these all up and put them in like a little baggie. So I've got them all prepared. And that didn't really take me very long. It would take a couple minutes if I weren't talking. So that's a really good strategy. I'm going to move some of these things out of the way. So before I cut up the rest of this, I'm just going to turn on my burner here and get started with just sauteing these. So like I said, at home, I would use like a big thing of olive oil, which I didn't bring out here purposefully because I wanted to show you how to do it without that. I do have some water, assuming that you're going to bring your own water camping, which is a really good idea. You can kind of stir fry things with a little bit of water. So I do want my fat, which I'm going to use this tahini. You could substitute like a small packet of nut butter, probably definitely unsweetened for this kind of thing, but that's a good way to not bring a whole jar of something. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water in here just to give it something to cook with. And that's a really good trick to use if you're out camping and you don't have everything with you. So this jet boil is super easy. I don't even need a lighter for it. I just turn it on. All right, now it's going. So you can't really see the flame from there, but I have it turned up pretty high, and I'm going to start this with like just high to get it going, and then I'll turn it down to like medium low to cook everything. And it doesn't take very long. So as I'm letting that just kind of start, I'm going to cut up the rest of these veggies here. And purposefully have creative veggies, just so you can see some good options. So a yellow pepper, anytime you have a color in vegetables and fruit, it means it's full of nutrients. So I really like yellow, orange, and red peppers over green peppers just because they have more nutrients in them. If you like green peppers, nothing wrong with them, but I just really like to include colors. And then when you're eating it, it's kind of fun to have like just different colors in your meal.
Eat your rainbow.
Yeah, exactly. And you can eat your rainbow outside. So I'm just slicing these up kind of into like bite-size-ish pieces, or I guess more like strips, maybe a little bit big for a bite, 2-bite pieces. And then I'm just going to start to add these things into my stir fry right here as I'm prepping them. Okay, so I'm cutting them sort of in order of what needs to cook the longest. So next I'm going to put the peppers in, just put them on top. And then I'm going to do this kohlrabi now because this is going to take a little bit longer. So this is kind of a unique one. It was in my CSA, so I decided to include it. It may not be something that I would always take with me, but it's in season right now. So I'm just going to cut this in half.
Can you tell us what that is or what it resembles? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's like a root vegetable. It's kind of like a rutabaga, and it tastes like it's like sweet and nutty flavored. So you have to take the skin off these. So how you cut it is you slice it in half, and then you quarter it. And then if you have like a mandolin, that's a really great way to do it. But we don't have that in camping. So I'm just going to cut off the skin and then cut it into small pieces. So it's also a little bit similar to a turnip, just maybe a little bit better flavor. Okay, so I've got the skin off of it. I'm just going to slice it into kind of thin pieces. And then I'm going to add this to my stir fry. And I can start to smell the garlic. It smells so good.
This is one of those times you definitely want smell-o-vision.
Yeah, I know. It's tasty. Okay, so add this.
This is just like a perfect little picnic table meal. Like you could do this on a jet boil. You could do this on your classic 2-burner Coleman. Like you don't need anything fancy.
Yep. Yeah. And this is, I mean, it's really, it doesn't take much more effort to cook something delicious like this and nutritious for your body. Okay. So I'm going to let that cook for a little bit. I'm going to start adding some flavor. So this is a huge container. I wouldn't bring this whole thing with me, but I would just probably put a little bit in like a smaller container to bring with me, or you can get a soy sauce pack, you know, anytime you go to a Japanese, Chinese restaurant or at the grocery stores, they often will have them. Or you could just bring some salt. Like salt is super easy to bring with you, but I really like the flavor of this. So, just going to put a little bit in here. And then I'm going to add this tahini right away too. So this is like making a sauce as I cook. So tahini is sesame seed, like nut butter, and it is delicious. It's really good for savory and mixed into a dish like this with soy sauce. It's tasty and it makes it, gives it a little bit of protein and some fat. And I wanted to talk about protein a little bit as I'm doing this. And protein is one that we oftentimes, I mentioned, we always think is like super hard to get protein. And it's actually not that hard in our diets. We don't need to have, say, like a chicken or a beef every single meal. And so for this meal, I don't have any protein that I'm going to prepare with this. It's got some good protein with, there's a little bit in the noodles and then with this tahini. In addition, if you want to add more, what I would suggest is a really easy one is tofu or chickpeas. And I like to bring those when I go camping because although if you bring cooler, it's not that hard to bring like chicken or beef or whatever with you. The potential for it to get too warm and then, you know, go to waste is a little bit high. And I just don't want to risk that. So I tend to not bring animal proteins with me when I go camping. That's just personal preference. So if you do want to do it, just make sure that you have the ability to keep it cool. So I'm just turning this down a little bit because it is cooking away. And just put it a little bit closer here. You can see starting to get, the vegetables are looking really good. It smells really good. It's all saucy. So I'm going to cut up a little bit of this kale. When I make stir fry, I like to have like the onions and the garlic for the flavor, and then some vegetables for like sustenance, like the peppers and the kohlrabi. And then the greens are what I use on just kind of on top of it to saute. They just give it some extra nutrients, and greens cook down quite a bit. So even though this looks like a lot of kale, it's going to cook down to not very much. So I'm just de-stemming it because the stem is kind of not a great, it's kind of hard to eat. So I'm just cooking the leaves, and you can see on top here, it looks like it's huge. And it is right now. It's going to cook down though.
It's like spinach. You can put like what seems like a gallon of spinach into a saute pan and give it 5 minutes and it's all gone. You yep. get like a quarter cup serving. Exactly.
So I'm gonna add a little bit more soy sauce. And then this is almost done cooking. And as that is wrapping up, I'm going to get my water ready for my noodles. These are only going to take a couple minutes. So I'm just going to put some water in here. And then if you had 2 jet boils, you could be doing this at the same time. I actually have another one, but I just wanted to keep this simple and just show you how easy this is with one. Okay, it's looking really good, smelling really good. So even though this is like a camp meal, this is like something I make usually every week, is stir-fried noodles like this.
While you're stir frying, Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit about what got you so interested in nutrition and what set you on your career path?
Yeah, I've always liked cooking and just making things, cooking in the kitchen from a young age. And in college, I studied exercise science, and it was super fascinating to me. I was an athlete as well. I cross-country skied in high school and college, and then I started running kind of after that. And I loved exercise science, but I felt like there was this gap where there's people who knew a lot about physiology and people who knew a lot about nutrition, and there wasn't much overlap there. And I really had a passion for both. And so I did my master's degree in exercise physiology. And then when I started my PhD, I was thinking about what I wanted to do, ultimately what I wanted to do. And I just felt that there was more space in the nutrition world to learn a little bit more and to kind of bridge that gap between being an active person and being someone who likes to cook and eat. And so I've really kind of tried to make those both my area of expertise. And I've just come to love nutrition even more. And I love teaching people about food. I'm just going to switch this now to the water. Teaching people about food and how to fuel their bodies. Because there's so much misinformation out there. And so it's really fun for me to be able to teach people. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this up. And then I'm going to do the black noodles because I think it's really cool to see all these vegetables against these. And these take just a couple minutes to cook. So I'm going to wait until this is boiling and then I'll throw these in there.
What are a couple of your favorite things to cook on trail? What are staples you always take with you when you go camping?
So something like this is a staple for me. I'll always take a bunch of vegetables and I'll either do like rice noodles are good. Couscous is another really great one because it cooks so fast and you can mix and match. You can make it sweet. You can make it savory. You can kind of put anything on it and it tastes good. I do noodles a lot with cheese. I'll make like my homemade mac and cheese. And if I'm backpacking and I can't bring all of this stuff with, I'll do like noodles and nutritional yeast and some salt because that's like a cheesy flavor. And then I'll put chickpeas in there. So it's like a little bit more balanced. Options for morning, I'll do oats a lot of the time, like instant oats with some peanut butter. If I have like blueberries or something, that's a really great one to bring with and put them in there. I try not to get too crazy with like, you know, breakfast is like usually a quick meal and then go off and play and then come back and spend a little bit more time preparing dinner. It's kind of like how I like to do it. Not everyone's the same way. So you could have your morning meal be the bigger one if you want to make like, I don't know, eggs and pancakes or whatever, and then have like a quicker dinner with like couscous and some dehydrated vegetables. That's an option to flip sort of. But I really like to bring real food with me as much as I can. And just doing a little bit of prep and planning goes so far. And you feel better too.
It's true. I've always struggled getting vegetables in for sure. And the last time I went camping, my friend was brilliant enough to think about grabbing the little dinner trays that you get at the grocery store. That's like the tray of vegetables. And we just put those on the fire and it was so great because we got our veggies in.
So great.
We do have a quick question in the chat. It says, does dehydrating veggies reduce their nutritional value?
It does. It does, but it's better than no veggies. You know, if your option is not having any or having dehydrated, it's much better to take the dehydrated options. And when you're going backpacking or you're not car camping, you can't bring all of this stuff with you, that's a great option. I'll do that as well, just to get some vegetables in order of like what's best. Fresh is the best, and then frozen, canned, and then dehydrated. So but you know, if you think about the number of days out of a year that you're camping, it's usually not super high, so you're not really missing out on nutrients as long as that's not your everyday life. Good question.
Thank you, Troy.
Do you dehydrate any food at home yourself?
Yeah, I do sometimes. I have a dehydrator. I haven't gone on a trip for a long time where I really have needed to do that. If I'm going to, usually I take, I'll take like some easy to dehydrate vegetables, like carrots are pretty easy. I'll do some fruit, figs, peaches, apples are pretty easy. I haven't played around with a lot of other things though, but if I was gonna, I guess, be in the backcountry for a long time, that would be something that I would definitely do a little bit more of. Okay, so my water is almost boiling. So I'm gonna add some of these noodles here. So other things I bring with me when I go camping are, for lunches, sometimes I'll just do leftover dinner stuff. So if there was like a leftover stir fry, I would have that, you know, the next morning. But oftentimes I'll do more snacky foods for lunch. And that's not something I do normally in my day-to-day life. I like to eat real meals, but when you're camping, that's not a bad way to go. So I always have a lot of nuts, like mixed nuts with me, salty, because I like the salty ones, and then some chocolate. That's a really great one. Also like carrots, they travel really well. I've gone backpacking before and actually taken carrots with me, and they take up a little bit of room, but you're going to eat them, and then there's more room in your backpack. So it's not a bad way to go. And those are pretty good snack as well. I will take some packaged things with me too, like bars or just like, you know, camp snacks, or I guess snack food. And there's a time and a place for that. And it's not every day, but when you need it for convenience, it's a good way to use those types of foods.
Yeah, I feel like there's nothing wrong with a Cliff Bar on your hike, but maybe don't have that be your only source of fuel for your whole camping trip.
100%. Yeah, that's a perfect way to think about it. When you're moving, like that occasion when you're moving, that's a great time to take in those types of foods.
When I go car camping, I definitely make a big show of my breakfast and my dinner, but lunch is either like a Cliff Bar on my hike, or if I happen to be back at the campsite, then like I usually will just make a sandwich or a quick little wrap with some raw veggies and maybe a sauce or something. And I love lunch being really quick and easy. But I also love the contrast of that, of like having a nice, really hearty breakfast, and same with dinner right before bed. And it definitely keeps me warm when I'm camping in the winter months.
100%. Yep. I'm the same way. And sometimes like for your first lunch that you're going to have, you can make something at home to bring with for the next day, like a wrap or a sandwich. So that way you already have it, you know, if you don't want to bring like a whole loaf of bread and like peanut butter and jelly or whatever, you can make it ahead of time so that it's ready when you go out. Okay. So these noodles are just about done. So I'm going to turn this off. And if I was camping, I would probably just dump this water out on the ground. But since I'm at my house and there's a deck right there, right under me, I'm going to just dump it in this other container here. And so you don't have to get all the water out, because some of it is going to be okay to go in with the sauce. So I'm just kind of getting out as much as I can. And there's a little bit left in there. And now I'm just going to dump these noodles into this, these veggies and sauce. Okay. And I'm going to show you what this looks like here. So there's lots of veggies and noodles. I'm just going to stir it all up and do a little taste test and see if I need anything else, but I can smell it and it smells delicious. And it looks really pretty too. There's lots of green and yellow, and the noodles are kind of like a dark purpley black. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this in close here so you guys can see the finished product.
That looks excellent.
Yeah, it's
great color.
It didn't take that long, and I was talking and like taking my time, and I don't know, maybe it took 15 or so minutes, but this was really simple. And you don't even have to be this complex. You could just do like 1 or 2 veggies and boil the noodles and then just put it together. And this is something that it tastes good, and it also fuels your body in the right ways so that you can do the things you want to do. You don't want to skimp on food when you're outside, because the energy expenditure when we're camping, like when you're sleeping in the cold, when you're outside all day, it's so much higher. So it's important to get good meals and to eat enough, because then you'll enjoy it more and you'll recover from it and be able to keep doing the things you want to do. So that's kind of it. I mean, just want you to see how simple that is, and pair this with like a little bit of camp wine. You got like a gourmet meal. And I would just eat it out of this pan. You could put it in a bowl if you wanted. I like to bring these just like camp mugs with, their aluminum mugs, to just put in. I could eat it out of here, or I could put my wine in here or coffee in here. So that's kind of all you need.
Multi-use.
Yeah.
We do have an excellent question from Victoria down here. She asks, any advice on foods to eat post-hike to help with recovery?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's like right at my alley. So the most important thing is to get just something in right after a hike, and ideally within the first hour after you finish. Mostly carbohydrate with a little bit of protein is going to help you recover the best. So we were just kind of saying earlier, the time to take in a product like a Cliff Bar is when you're moving. And that extends actually into the hour after an activity. So although when you eat a meal, you want it to kind of look like this, be a lot of real food, you can have something super simple right after you do a hike or a bike ride or a run or climb or whatever you're doing. That's a really good time to take in still those simple foods to help with recovery. And easier if you're on the trail too.
Excellent. And then what about adding protein powder to your cooked meals?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, especially for like breakfast, because it is tough to get protein in. And so for like that instant oat option I was mentioning, like peanut butter is great, but if you don't want to bring peanut butter with, you can easily bring a protein powder and just stir that in and get a little bit more sustenance. The thing I would say with the protein powder is just check the ingredients, make sure that you're getting a good source. You don't want to have something that has a bunch of different things like preservatives and additives in it, but there's so many brands that have a really good protein. So whey is great. That's like a dairy product, or brown rice, or pea protein. Those are kind of the 3 that in the literature are the best type of protein for, I guess, your body and recovery. Oh, it smells so good.
It looks really delicious. I'm definitely hungry now.
I wish I could give you a sample right now. I haven't done an in-person event for a while, but I used to do a lot of cooking demonstrations, and then I'd have everyone come up afterwards and like have little bits to taste. And it's so good. This is fantastic for this day and age, but it's so good to like see this, but then taste it too. It's like, oh yeah, I need to make this. So trust me, you guys need to make this.
I think I'll have to add it into my rotation.
Yeah, it's a really great one. And the thing with not really following a recipe is you can use any vegetables. So whatever's in season, and that kind of like mixes it up as well. And you can do like a different type of like sauce. I just really like the tahini because it tastes really good, but customize it however you like.
Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to the North Face?
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. I was just starting to run. I've always been a runner, but I was just starting to run longer distances on trails. And at the time, I had a friend in Bend who was kind of a mentor to me. Her name was Cami Semick, and she was on the North Face team. And my first 50K, Cami beat me by like 20 minutes. And she was like, Stephanie, you're good at these. You should do these. And she introduced me to the North Face. And that was 12 years ago now. And yeah, I started on the team that following year, and it was kind of thanks to her. So I don't want to say it was just like random luck, but it was kind of being in the right place and knowing the right people and just being really open and willing to try something new. And since then, I've traveled all over the world and gotten to do some really incredible races and opportunities, and just really love my teammates and love the North Face.
That's really sweet. I would love to know, like, where was your favorite race, or like, what's your favorite thing you've done outside?
Oh, so my favorite place in the whole entire world is Chamonix, Chamonix, France, which is where Mont Blanc is. And there's a race that goes around Mont Blanc. It's called Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. And it's a 100-mile race. And I've done it 4 times. And I haven't really successfully had a really good race there. So I'm going to keep going back until I have a good day. So that's probably my favorite. My other favorite is Western States, which is a trail or a race from Palisades, which is used to Squaw Valley. It's now called Palisades in by Lake Tahoe. It starts there and it finishes in Auburn. And it's probably one of the biggest races in the country, actually in the world. And that was my first 100. And I actually won the race that year. So it's like really special to me. But those 2 races, like when I think about them, it gives me chills.
That's awesome. I would love to go to France, specifically where you mentioned, because I love rock climbing, and that's like definitely one of the best places in the world for that. So that would be a dream. That's so cool. You've been there 4 times.
Yeah, you should totally come with next year. It's awesome. The race is in August, and it's really a cool time to be over there because the weather is fantastic, and there's a lot of people that come in for the race, a lot of things going on. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I really will recommend the Jetboil. No affiliation at all, but for the convenience and the ease of just like being able to just turn it on and boil water and saute vegetables, it was super quick. So I'm a huge fan.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if Stephanie, you're able to show your stove a little bit closer. It's probably cooled off a little bit by now, but don't touch the top, I guess. So if you guys are looking at Stephanie, she's got this awesome canister stove. So what she's holding at the bottom is the fuel. And that is usually like a iso propane mix.
But it's not showing the person.
You can get those at a lot of camp stores like ours, and even some places like Academy. And those are really great because they're quick and easy. And a lot of stoves like Jetboil just screw on to the top. They just have some threads and they just screw on. And then it's very easy. There's just like a little, what do you call that, valve that you twist, and you get some fuel coming through your stove. It's super easy and quick, and it makes for a really simple camp stove. There's no major cleanup or anything like you would with some more involved stoves. And a lot of them will just pack into a pot or bowl, like similar to the ones that Stephanie was using to cook with, but she has this smaller one that she poured the water into after boiling. And those are quick little like 1-pot systems. So the stove fits in there, sometimes even a pot stand. You might even have room for a spork. And then usually there's enough room for that fuel canister, and then there's a lid. So what's nice about those systems is they're very compact. So
this is my small backpacking one. I've got everything inside of here. There's like the little Jetboil, and then this is actually my canister, but this is small.
Yeah, and they make fuel smaller than that too. She's got one of the like 8-ounce canisters, but they make a smaller one that's like 4 ounces And yeah, those work really well for those like single, like backpacking size. But if you're going with a group or you're going for a longer trip, that 8-ounce canister size is really great. And there's other options, especially if you're not going to go with this canister stove. There's like full on like Coleman 2-burner stoves that have like this propane, like classic green can. And those are also excellent, but they're definitely a little bit more bulky. So if you happen to be going this route of using like a true, like a backpacking stove like this, then those really nice compact options are great. And like I said, it's basically a backpacking stove. So you can take it with you on, you know, longer trips and things where you're going to be hiking in. But I have a bunch of those, and I even use those when I car camp. Like I don't always bring a big bulky 2-burner stove because sometimes I just don't need that. And it's really nice to have a simple setup like the Jetboil. So those are excellent. Whatever brand you get, they're excellent. And I love cooking on these. A lot of them are like nonstick or ceramic coated. So easy cleanup, and it's just easy breezy. I love cooking outside.
I will say one little pro tip for like your average Coleman stove. A lot of times you can just use like a pot from home as long as it's got like a good thick bottom, but you can't use those on a lot of the little gas stoves. So just keep that in mind. You may need a special pot.
Definitely. Yes, that is a great tip, Rainey. Thank you so much for saying that. If any of you guys are starting out, I do recommend getting that 2-burner like Coleman stove or GSI stove, because you can use your pots and pans from home on those. They're just propane stoves. So it's super easy to get involved that way with being your own camp chef. But if you're ending up going on like a more dedicated trip, whether that's backpacking or you just want something a little bit more dedicated, then those brands like Jetboil and MSR make some camp specific pots and pans and cookware that can be excellent for your trip. And a lot of those are modular with the stoves that they make. So that's definitely a really good point to bring up. Thanks, Rainey.
Well, I'm starting to get precipitation here. So
let's get you inside.
So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for everything. The food looked delicious. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Stephanie, do you want to plug your social media real quick if anybody wants to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm most active on Instagram. Stephanie Marie Howe is my handle. I also have a website, stephaniemmariehowe.com. Yeah, check it out. I've got some recipes up there, food pictures, running pictures, baby pictures, kind of the whole mix.
Awesome. We'll check that out. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate it. And we hope you get inside and stay dry.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Stephanie. Have a great weekend.
Bye.